Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tuts, and today we're going to be going over two really cool pseudo elements, and what they are is before and after, and they allow you to insert things before and after your code, in any given item, really. The only downside to this is that it doesn't work in IE7 and lower, so you're going to want to maybe follow the rules of progressive enhancement and have the site looking good for those clients that are on 7 or whatever you support. And then, maybe the people who have the more modern browsers might get a little bit nicer looking site. So one of the cool things about before and after is that they're just a little bit different than what we done before. And before we added something like hover to add an effect when you roll over. Before and after is inserting content. So let's say we want every single list item on the site in front of it to have a right angle quote. Okay, so I'm going to do list item and then colon before, and then in my brackets here I'm going to say content colon, and then here is the hexadecimal code for a right angle quote. I will post this link in the video, but here's a really helpful Unicode code converter. And you might be familiar with HTML and XML entities, but those aren't going to work in CSS. So what we're going to want to use is this hexadecimal code, and it's going to render fine. So now if we have this code here, we can save this. I'm actually going to give this a font size of, let's say 20 pixels, just so it stands out. And let's check out our site. And as you can see, before every single list item, not only do we have the actual list item list style, we also have this right angle quote that goes directly before the li, and it happens on every single one. Well, even if we wanted to, we could say, let's change this to paragraph. Now every single paragraph before it instead is going to have that right angle quote in front of it. Then this can be useful for something like this, where it's just adding some flair, really. But what you're not going to want to do is get into situations where you're writing, let's say put a word here, right? Because now we have this word item, it appears before all of them, and let's say that's something we really wanted to do for some reason. Well, this code here isn't part of your HTML, and it's not really following the principles that you have CSS for in the beginning. You want to keep your styles and your content separate, while CSS really gives you an opportunity to add content to your code with CSS here. You're not going to want to add a whole lot of content here because it's not going to, you want to keep your styles and your content separate. So that's why I think it's really useful for something like adding a right angle quote, or just adding maybe something after your code. And after works the same way. I should illustrate that as well. After, and let's just put a word, okay? Refresh. Now you get word after every single paragraph, okay? So what else can before and after do? Well, it can allow you to do some really cool effects if used in an interesting way. See, one thing about before and after is that we have to have this content for it to work. However, we don't have to have anything in that content. If we delete it and we just have an empty content here, we can do all sorts of stuff. Oops. So let's see something a little bit more interesting we can do with this. So I'm going to add this to our main, actually, let's add this to all of the paragraphs. And first, I'm going to say for all the paragraphs, you're going to get a background color of blue, because we like that, and a color of white. Okay, and what we're going to do for after these paragraphs is we're going to give this a shape on the side of it, okay? what we want to do is we want to get rid of this font size because we're not going to be using that for this. And this will be a hilarious example because right now we just don't know enough to do anything really cool with this, but in the future it's going to have an opening for some really interesting, great CSS techniques that you'll be using to just have great effects. So we're going to just give this a height, oh boy, a height of 40 pixels. We're going to give this a width of 40 pixels. And we're going to give this a display block. And we're going to give this a background of yellow because we like this to look hideous. Okay, now that should be good. And you know what? I'm going to give it a position relative. If you recall before, this is going to position this relatively to the paragraph, and we're going to say it's going to be right by negative 10 pixels just so we can see it, okay? And now let's come to our page, refresh, and so here are these yellow boxes that we've created by saying after the paragraph, here's your yellow box, okay? So now this may seem totally useless to you, and I promise it's going to be really cool. We're going to be able to create some great shapes, something a little bit more complex, but once we get into how you do things like CSS triangles and stuff, it'll all make a little bit more sense how this can be useful to you. Just experiment with before and after and see what you can come up with, okay? As always, if you have any questions, please leave a comment on the video. Hit us up at Twitter, Level Up Tuts, let us know what you're thinking. Once again, this is Scott, and thanks for watching.